All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Muchas gracias por estar presente. Si requiere oír esta presentación en español, por favor, abajo de su pantalla hay un símbolo de globo y puede elegir el español con ese símbolo. I will just explain in Spanish. There is a Spanish interpretation via the globe there. Hi, my name is Alderperson Mike Rodriguez of the 22nd Ward. It's an absolute pleasure to have you folks here today. We are in the middle of making an exciting development happen over at the old Leclerc courts. And part of that way of making that exciting project happen is adding a TIF to the area. And we will go over that today. We'll have experts go over that from the Department of Planning and Development. We have Beth McGuire, their financial planning analyst, and Tim Jeffries, the Deputy Commissioner of the Financial Incentives Division. We also have the TIF consultants who drafted the Cicero Stevenson redevelopment plan from ERS, are Ralph Kinzer and Ernest Sawyer. So just to give you the brief agenda for today, I'll explain the purpose and some of the context to today's meeting. We'll have Beth from DPD, Beth McGuire, talk about the redevelopment plan presentations. Tim Jeffries will be there to answer questions in the chat and as the meeting progresses. And then we'll go to a more formal question and answer session with the aforementioned Beth McGuire and Tim Jeffries, but then also the folks from ERS. I will be happy, along with my Director of Policy and Community Outreach, Elian Baena, will be happy to help moderate that question and answer session. And then we'll do a brief wrap up. Just so folks know ahead of time, the presentation will be posted to the department's YouTube page, and questions may also be directed to dpd@cityofchicago.org. I will say that again later on in the meeting. But before we begin our presentation again, I'll reiterate in Spanish. Por favor, se requiere oír esta presentación en español. Hay en su pantalla hay un símbolo de globo y lo puede elegir español. Without further ado, I'd like to give some context. As we know, the former Leclerc Courts CHA housing, 600 units, was situated over on 43rd and Cicero. Those apartments were raised some years ago. But over the last 2 years, my office, in conjunction with a number of community-based organizations in Leclerc-Hurst and around that area, have partnered up and done a number of community engagement sessions. We've worked with the Right to Return groups for Leclerc and a number of other groups to bring this project to fruition. We passed plan commission. I'm going to need Mr. Sawyer to go on mute, please. I still don't see you on mute, Mr. Sawyer, if you wouldn't mind. So we passed the plan commission unanimously and enthusiastically, and subsequently the plan development for the redevelopment of Leclerc Courts passed both the zoning committee at City Council and the full City Council. We're excited to break ground, hopefully, this year on a brand new 60,000 square foot grocery store, a 50,000 square foot federally qualified health center. We'll have a number of other amenities for the community, but one of the most important elements is 2 units that would house up to 200 units of affordable housing there at the former site of the Leclerc Courts. This is phase 1 development for this larger development. Just before this development, we will kickstart, and we hope to have in the ground in the next couple of months, the Academy for Global Citizenship, which is also on the land formerly held by CHA. But today we will be concentrating on the city pursuit of designation of the Cicero Stevenson TIF district in order to support the efforts that I previously laid out. We want to hold this meeting to ensure that the community stays informed and has opportunities to raise questions about this specific part of the development, but overall, we'll always want to do our best to continue to engage and inform the community about what's happening here at this very important site that is a critical development site for the southwest side of Chicago, potentially the largest, the most important development that we've seen on the southwest side of Chicago since Midway Airport was constructed some years ago. So without further ado, I will silence myself and I will come back for the Q&A, but I'd like to turn the table over to Beth McGuire from the Department of Planning and Development at the City of Chicago. Take it over, Beth.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Beth McGuire, as the Alderman said, and I'm the project manager with the Department of Planning and Development. As the Alderman said, the purpose of this meeting is to discuss the creation of a new tax increment financing, or TIF, as we will refer to it, district centered on the former LeClaire Courts housing development. Sorry, my slide isn't forwarding. Okay. So here is the agenda for this evening. First, we'll discuss why are we here, the purpose and the reason for this meeting, and the use of TIF overall. After that, I will explain how tax increment financing, or TIF, works, and then we will walk through the specifics of the Cicero Stevenson TIF designation, including the boundary of the redevelopment project area, the eligibility factors, goals and objectives of the plan, proposed land use plan, and the plan budget. Once we finish running throughout the presentation, we will answer any questions you may have. So please let us finish the presentation first. And we already had our introductions. So we will get to the purpose for the designation. Why are we here? The main purpose for why we are here is to designate a new TIF district for a 24-year period to allow for the redevelopment of the former LeClaire Courts CHA housing project within the project area. The development was built in the 1940s and 1950s and housed 616 units until the development was ultimately demolished by 2011 and has remained vacant since that time. The designation would result in the establishment of a TIF district for a term to expire December 31st, 2046, to establish a redevelopment budget, prepare a land use map to account for future development, and ensure that the TIF district designation is completed in accordance with the State TIF Act. So you may be wondering, what is a TIF district? At their most basic, TIF districts are a funding tool that helps generate financial resources to support development projects within a specific geography. We've had TIF in Chicago since 1984, when the state of Illinois passed the TIF Act, allowing individual municipalities to designate districts. That legislation has been amended several times since then, but still provides the legal framework for the use of TIF funds by the city. That framework allows the city to establish a TIF district, but only in places that meet specific eligibility requirements. Generally, a specific geographic area needs to demonstrate what the Act calls lighting factors. Those are defined in the State TIF Act. So this chart gives a pretty good idea how TIF works. The city is required to designate a specific area as within a TIF district. When that happens, the TIF will freeze the base taxes of the properties within the district at the time of adoption. Any growth of taxes following that designation are called incremental property taxes. Those funds are retained within the district rather than being collected by the taxing bodies for the duration of the TIF, usually 24 years. Once the TIF expires, the increased property tax value will resume as normal. As an example, if your property taxes are $100 a year for your parcel, and in that same year, your property is designated as being within a TIF district, then the following year, your property taxes increased $105. The $100 you were paying would go to the same places they always have. the school district, the park district, the city, and other taxing bodies. The additional $5 increase, however, would go to the TIF district to be used for eligible improvements within that district. An important distinction is that the property tax levy would not change for properties within a TIF, either with or without the presence of a TIF, meaning that a TIF designation functions as a tax diversion. It is not a tax increase. You may be wondering, what can TIF funds be used for? Once a TIF is in place, there are no limitations as to how the TIF can and cannot be used, but for those limits in the state law. In brief, the uses that are most allowed are public infrastructure and facilities, affordable housing, environmental remediation, and the rehabilitation of existing buildings. To the right, the chart shows how the city uses TIF funds for its districts. As you can see, on a citywide basis, nearly 50% of all funds are used for public infrastructure, and more than 80% is used on fully public uses, including schools, park, and public transit improvements. This particular TIF, the Cicero Stevenson TIF, has its boundary map right here. As you can see, the TIF is bounded on the north, generally by this railroad, the Canadian National Railroad and the Stevenson Expressway. On the east by Cicero Avenue. On the south by 45th Street and West 44th Street. And on the west by Laverne Avenue and Laramie Avenues. The area measures approximately 65 acres in size and encompasses the former Leclerc Courts development in its entirety. In order to establish a TIF district, the State TIF Act requires that certain eligibility factors that legally demonstrate that an area is blighted be present. For vacant land like this, the city must establish that at least 2 eligibility factors are present in order to qualify for TIF designation. After a thorough review, it was determined that this area exhibits 3 of those blighting factors: obsolete planning, environmental remediation costs, and the land being blighted, improved prior to becoming vacant. I will explain each factor. Obsolete planning refers to parcels with irregular shapes, making them difficult to develop. In this area, as you can see on the map, one parcel over here has absolutely no road access. 6 parcels are split by the streets over here, and LaPorte Avenue lies within a parcel so landlocked there's no right-of-way provided, and the existing right-of-way is not wide enough for modern vehicles, which would necessitate new platting. Environmental contamination, while it can't be seen on a map, prior to 2011, when the area was occupied by residential structures, they were built in the 40s and 50s. The site was evaluated before the buildings were demolished, and several contaminants, such as asbestos, lead paint, and extensive mold, were found to be present. All the contaminants were removed, a significant cost to the Chicago Housing Authority, and the site then received clearance from both the US and Illinois environmental protection agencies. The next factor is if an improved area is blighted prior to it becoming vacant. The TIF Act also allows for the consideration of the state of a redevelopment area prior to vacancy if at least 5 of the 13 state factors can be established as being present. A review of historical records found that when the former Leclerc Courts development was still standing, it exhibited 6 blighting factors. These include the following: dilapidation, obsolescence, deterioration, structures below building code standards, excessive vacancies, and environmental cleanup costs were incurred. Dilapidation, deterioration, and structures below code standards all generally refer to the poor condition of the building and infrastructure improvements that were previously in the area. Obsolescence, in this case, refers to buildings that are outdated, having outdated kitchens, bathrooms, and plumbing and mechanical systems that are outdated, and the cost to bring them up to modern standards would not be financially feasible. Combined, all of these factors make the area eligible for designation as a TIF district. Once the eligibility for a district has been established, we then come up with goals and objectives for the area. Each TIF district has a list of goals and objectives. As we've noted before, the big picture goal is certainly the redevelopment of LeClaire Courts, but more specifically, the goals include promoting the redevelopment or the development of a mixed income residential community with a range of housing options, encouraging commercial amenities like grocery and other retail, maximizing private investment and public benefit, and improving infrastructure and parks. Once the goals and objectives have been decided upon, the next step is to create a land use plan that serves as a framework for the redevelopment of the area. This plan includes the general land use plan of future development within the district. As many of you may know, the proposed development project calls for a mix of uses, which will include both residential and commercial uses, parks and open spaces, and institutional uses are also contemplated. More specifically, as many of you may know, the development team has proposed a mixed-use project that aligns with the previous map and will consist of a variety of both residential and commercial buildings. The residential units will include both affordable and market rate housing, and the commercial will provide amenities to the new residents and the existing surrounding community, such as a grocery store. And here is another rendering of the proposed project and what it might look like once it is complete. In order to make that project and others a reality, the redevelopment plan has identified a budget that reflects anticipated expenses over the 24-year life of a TIF. The expected increment to be generated and expended is $80 million. A note on the budget, these line items here that you see, they're for planning purposes. More money or less money can be spent on any individual line item. The only figure that can't change without City Council approval is the total redevelopment project cost line item, which is the $80 million. The majority of funds for this TIF are the affordable housing construction and also the public works infrastructure line. Those are the biggest line items in this district. There are several more steps in the process to designate a TIF district. This slide shows the next steps. The Community Development Commission meeting will be held in April 2022, currently planned for April 5th, 2022. And the plan will be finalized and approved by this summer, hopefully June 2022. Thank you all for your time this evening, and we are now happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Beth, for the presentation. So I am hoping someone from the team would be able to explain how folks can chime in and give questions at this point.
Got it. There is a Q&A function on Zoom. You can see it at the kind of bottom bar. If anybody has any questions, they can just submit through there. Should be someone available to answer either via text or on video, either way, depending on who wants to. It says there are no open questions right now, so if you have them, get them in.
So there was a question from Tom Trusser. Are you guys gonna speak to that?
Sure. I mean, you know,
Please
Tom
identify yourself. Tim.
I'm sorry, Tim Jeffries, I'm the Deputy Commissioner of the Financial Incentives Division. Mr. Tresser made a point that the TIFs are a bad deal for the city of Chicago. I mean, I think that they are a tool that is certainly going through a reevaluation of how and when they are used and best used. In this case, I think that the department has worked closely with the CHA. This is a former CHA land. I think that all parties, both the Department of Planning, specifically the City of Chicago as a whole, CHA, you aldermen, and the community as a whole want there to be a return of affordable housing to this spot. And ultimately, TIF is a way to help get that done. And so we view this as a good and appropriate use of TIF moving forward.
I agree. From Carl Rosen, what is the $10 million interest subsidy that was on the slide earlier?
On the budget, that is money that could be paid. I think right now we don't know how projects will come in exactly. I mean, we know that they will be associated with Leclerc courts, but on an individual project basis, we don't know what every project will need moving forward, and the city could issue debt against the TIF. And if we did, that interest subsidy line item could either be used to help pay the city's own debt, or it could be used to help pay the debt of the development team. The TIF Act allows for 30% of interest carry costs in any given year as a TIF eligible expense.
Okay, thank you. The next question from Ms. Todd. Hello, my name is Jametta Todd. I was told the meeting starts at 7. Oh, you started already. Sorry, Ms. Todd. I will say that the meeting was to be live streamed on YouTube. Does someone want to talk about that, please?
Yeah, I believe that all of our meetings are now posted on the DPD's YouTube page, so you should be able to see this in the very near future. It should go. I don't want to say tomorrow. I'm not sure how quickly our team gets it up, but it'll be up there soon.
And Ms. Todd, I'd like to add that we did put it on our newsletter, and we did put it on social media that the meeting would start at 6. However, we're happy to touch base with you in the future. I think we know how to get in touch with you for any other questions or anything you might have missed in this presentation. From April Dunlap, when is the project supposed to start?
So they've already, as the Alderman mentioned, they have already received their zoning approvals. I don't have a specific start date, but I believe the development team is working on finalizing plans and obtaining financing. So I don't have a specific start date.
Yeah, Ms. Dunlap, I don't have a specific start date as well. The development team did publicly state that they'd like to be in the ground at the end of Q2 of this year. I also publicly stated after they said that was a stretch goal. I'm very hopeful that would happen, but given the significant hurdles in getting these things started, given the times we're living in as far as procuring materials, it could be a bit longer, but I'm very hopeful that this gets started as soon as possible and sometime this year. I think Ulises Ortega, his question is, will this money only be used for this district? And can it be used for other parts of the city?
So TIF funds have to be spent in the district in which they are generated.
All right, we have J.R. Nanchuk. I hope I'm saying that correctly. What are the TIF district's proposed expenditures associated with the Academy for Global Leadership Charter School?
We have no plans to fund that school.
I believe there was a question from Joanne Williams that I don't see up, and maybe I'm forgetting it, but it was around Leclerc Hearst Park being eligible for dollars.
Yeah, It is eligible, as you said, to use TIF funds for it. I don't think that there's a defined project right now today, but we were intentional to include the park in the boundaries of the TIF so that it could be eligible in the future when if there is a project and when there's funds.
And then Carl Rosen asked a question that I don't think was answered around where is the school to be located on the graphic? If you could bring that up, back up, I'm happy to.
Yeah,
talk.
I can bring the map back up. Sorry, let me close the chat.
Actually, the just previous map. Oh yeah, that's perfect. The blue there.
Yeah,
404.
the institutional use, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that 404, 404 right there, that blue there, Mr. Rosen, is where the school will be located in the entirety of that location. Just so folks know, the developments that we're talking about, the FQHC, Federally Qualified Health Center, the grocer, and affordable housing is essentially between La Crosse and Cicero Avenue, hugging 44th Street there. You know, if someone from the development team or someone wants to correct me on that, I think I got that right. I just wanted to make, this is a little funny the way this is laid out.
Do you want me to switch to a different graphic?
No, that's fine, I think.
Alderman, it's Mark Korincic from Cabrera Capital. I can probably answer that based on the graphic that's here. Section 415 down at the kind of bottom right of the screen is right now anticipated to be 2 mid-rise buildings with mixed use affordable housing, ground floor, commercial, and residential above. And site number 407, just immediately up on your screen, would be the Federally Qualified Healthcare Center right at 44th and Cicero, and a grocery store sitting a little bit back at 43rd and Cicero toward the back, right where that 407 is, where her cursor is. So if that's helpful, that's really the goal for the first phase.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. J.R. Natchik has another question. When and how will the related ordinances, the redevelopment agreement and rezoning, become publicly available?
So the redevelopment plan was filed yesterday, so that is now a public document. In terms of the ordinances and all that, this won't go to city council until May or June. So once it gets introduced to council, then goes to committee, then gets approved by council. Once those actions happen, then those will be public documents as well. But if somebody wants to request to see the plan, they can. And I think it might, if it's not on our website already, I think, Tim, it would be on there shortly.
It's on file with the clerk right now, and I don't know if the clerk makes it public, but it's in the public realm. I put the link for the rezoning in the chat just now, but if you'd like a copy of the redevelopment plan, we're happy to share it. Just if you would email dpd@cityofchicago.org, and it'll get forwarded to us. We'll send it to you.
Perfect. That I'm hoping that answered the question, and I'm assuming it was regarding the creation of the TIF district versus the Leclerc development zone.
I will take one more second stab at this, I suppose. For a redevelopment agreement, we don't have one, and we're not anticipating that we'll have one for a little bit. We haven't had any substantial conversations about using TIF for a project yet. This is really a table setting exercise, and I know that the first phase of this development was awarded low-income housing tax credits by our Department of Housing, but they don't anticipate using TIF for that first phase. So potentially in use for the second phase, but that's a bit down the road.
Great. And I just wanted to reiterate something that was written. Will there be TIF funds for Leclerc Hurst Park. I just want to make sure everyone saw that TIF is available to be used for the park district once a TIF district is created and as it's in the boundaries. No known projects are currently anticipated to declare at this time. However, there can be in the future, and I'd assume there would be. But we can cross that bridge at that point. I think that's what we have for questions so far. And thanks, Tim, for posting the zoning document there.
Mhm.
All right, let's give it a minute. Folks might want to take a minute to just put in a question if they have one.
Sure.
Beth, could you go back to the rendering?
Ulysses asked for the rendering again. Thank you, Ulysses. We'll get that up.
This one or this one?
So why don't we spend a moment on the previous slide and then we'll come back to this one.
This slide or the other one?
Yeah, so stay on this one. So just to orient folks, on the, on one side of the screen, you have the I-55 Expressway. That's to the north. To the south, you have what I'm pretty sure is 45th Street. And correct me if I'm wrong. At the top here, the top red line is Cicero Avenue. And you can see the two mid-rise buildings that are about 5 stories tall there. And to their north, the FQHC and grocery store. Mark, did I get that right?
Yes, generally. This honestly is an old picture. If Beth, if you can go back to the other slide, which shows the overall, there we go. This is a more representative, this is what past plan commission, in general, this is not quite fully accurate, but where the healthcare building is, that's a little bit bigger. It extends a little bit further to the north along Cicero. And the grocery store is in the same position that it is on this slide. And there's only one retail outlet on the front there, just one out parcel, which would typically be a restaurant or other use in that regard. And that is the only section that we are focused on right now, other than the A North and A South, which still have to go through DPD for plan approval. So the grocery store on this slide is located where we plan and has been approved, and the healthcare facility is where it's been planned and approved, if that's helpful.
That was great, Mark. Thank you. And
Thank you.
Joanne wants to get together after the meeting, Mark. All right. I think we've given folks enough time to type their questions if they have any. Would someone from DPD just share where this presentation resides on the World Wide Web?
This is going up on our YouTube account, Chicago DPD. It's being live streamed now, and a recording of the live stream will be posted as soon as this wraps up.
Yep, and I believe my social media account is sharing it. That was the plan. Technology is not my forte, but I hope that happened. And you could probably find it there on Alderperson Michael D. Rodriguez. I wanted to take the opportunity to thank Ulysses for making this happen. Well, Ulysses is thanking us for making this happen, but we thank you for your questions. I want to thank everyone for being present at this meeting. Thanks to Beth and Tim for answering questions, and to Mark and the development team for their thoughts. Again, if you have any questions, further questions, dpd@cityofchicago.org, dpd, D as in David, P as in Peter, D as in David, @cityofchicago.org. This presentation is on the department's YouTube page. You can check out my social media Facebook page as well. Last but certainly not least, thank you all for being present, and we look forward to seeing this through. Anything else, DPD folks?
Not for me. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate everyone's time.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.